Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our panel, Leading HR Through the AI Era. Perfect. So let me introduce the people with me on stage today. Alexandra Hartung leads Workday's medium enterprise businesses in Germany. She spent 10 years with the company, 5 years working with smaller and medium-sized businesses. And she knows what these kind of companies need and where they struggle. So we will discuss that today. And with me is William as well. He works at Sana, which started as an AI-native learning platform in Sweden, Stockholm. And you could say Sana is now Workday's AI layer. So Sana was acquired by Workday in late 25 for over $1 billion. So that was quite a big acquisition. And is now the interface that automates HR workflows. And William focuses on helping companies to adopt that technology in daily business. And my name is Antonia. Celine introduced me, so I don't need to say anything more. I talked and thought about leadership for the last 20 years on stage and in my podcast, Wegen guter Führung. Before we dive in, I would love to start with a personal question. What is a skill you have as a leader, both of you, that you hope AI never learns? William, do you want to start with that question?
Thank you, Antonia. Well, I'm going to be blunt. I work in sales, so I really hope that AI doesn't learn how to sell. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Well, I was thinking before I saw the little robot at the beginning, it might be my dancing skills when I open my town halls, but having seen him dance, that is definitely a skill that can be replaced. So no, I just actually did a leadership assessment, Clifton 5 strengths, some of you might know, and one of the key top 5 strengths was relator. So I'm actually able to build genuine connections with the people. And I hope that this is something I can keep up against AI.
And I hope to see you dancing later. That's an interesting skill.
Let's see. We have a booth, so potentially step by. We do a little dance.
Yeah, I mean, so let's start with reality, not vision, because, I mean, yeah, we are in Bielefeld, not Silicon Valley. And I talk to a lot of Mittelstand leaders. And, I mean, the truth is some of them still run HR on paper. So payroll in spreadsheets. So Alexandra, please be honest with that room. What does a company actually need to have in place before AI becomes relevant and can be successful?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And Antonia, the maturity of companies is pretty broad here. And also the processes they have already started to digitize or to use AI with. So what we often see, and we have heard from Isabel beforehand, that for example, in production, in supply chain, so in the core business processes, it is often already used. But speaking about back office processes, like for example, HR or finance, it's exactly the reality which you just mentioned, which we are seeing in the broad majority of the Mittelstand, that a lot of companies are still on paper or in different modular solutions. And the AI can only be as good as the data is below, right? And the context, because otherwise it still is reasoning and working with probabilities. So I think putting that foundational data model, the digitization layer first, is a prerequisite, especially in HR.
Yeah. So I mean, if somebody is sitting in the room right now having this problem, what could be a first step?
Yeah, it is exactly not doing of the old things before, doing it in the same way and just putting it into a new tool. That is what I feel is happening a lot at the moment, that it is a tech-led discussion, which is the next best tool which I can try out. No, please take time and rethink your processes and where you can make things better to then leverage as a basis for AI.
Yeah. And William, you mentioned something very interesting in our prep call. You said the first 3 months of an AI rollout are predictable, so you can hand companies a playbook and this stuff is going to happen. But after that, every company takes kind of a different path. So use cases emerge you haven't even anticipated. So could you tell us about that moment? What happens exactly when the playbook runs out?
Yeah, and I promise I'm not going to pitch too much, but kind of the way that we deploy our technology is that we work with a project team from the customer side. We identify some strong key use cases, scope them out before the go live. But then we realize the fact that if we deploy to 1,000 people, we're going to have 10% of that demographic that are going to become sort of power users, super users, the ones with the highest usage on the platform of any AI tool. And it's hard to identify those people beforehand because neither us, coming from the supplier side, nor the customer side, like knows every single person in the business. Let's say you're 1,000 people. So you kind of need to take both a centralized approach, like start with some key use cases, you build them out together, get kind of that wow factor in the beginning, get people excited, and then you're going to make sure that the people, the 10% in the business, will naturally become power users. But it's hard to identify them beforehand, so you need to make them feel empowered and able, and kind of give them the mandate from leadership that you are expected to play around and learn this new tool and share what you're building. So that's typically where we see, like after the initial 3 months, these power users emerge and they start building all kinds of agents that neither us nor the customer on the project team had any idea would be built, basically, which is super exciting. And it's always something unexpected that shows up.
Yeah. I mean, the technology is exciting, but here's something I kind of keep hearing from leaders from different companies, different sizes. They say, yeah, AI saves time. I think there's no question about that. But then what happens next? More meetings, more reporting, more coordination. So I have the feeling that these efficiency gains, they get absorbed by the organization and very quick. So how do companies make sure that the time goes somewhere meaningful? Because I don't think we need more meetings. I mean,
more meetings or more emails, right?
Yes.
Oh, no, surely not. Well, I think it's exactly making up the mind what is happening with the time and to make the best use out of it. What we hear frequently in our customer discussions is that today there's so many tedious and administrative processes where AI can certainly help. And you use then the time which gets free for more quality, to actually engage, and that goes back to the relation skills, to actually engage with the people in qualitative and personal discussions. Because one of the insights we have also with AI, there's a lot of fear at the moment, and you need to manage the change. And oftentimes employees are not really happy how the strategy is communicated today. So with the time, managers or also HR gets now a spare time, use it to actually engage in these discussions. Or one practical example, maybe quite interesting from our very own sales force internally. We figured out that our top performers are using twice as much AI as a medium performer in sales. And on average, they get exactly 1 hour back per week in terms of time. And they use it in qualitative discussions with their customers. And we actually see a concrete result that our ARR, the revenue we're generating, has doubled. So it doesn't seem a lot, but 1 hour more quality time for a salesperson per week to spend in qualitative discussions with the customer can have such a huge impact on actual KPIs.
And do you encourage this pattern in any way now?
Yes, we do. We also have weekly employee surveys we're doing where we're gathering the sentiments and exactly encourage our leaders to spend more time with the people, for example.
Yeah. So let's talk about critical thinking and accountability, because both are big factors in using AI. If people hand over one decision after another to AI, they might stop or practicing judgment altogether. And you know the saying, a muscle you don't use, you lose. So instead of killing critical thinking, how can company use AI tools and actually raise the bar for humans?
It's a good question. I think I see it twofold. That one, we are going to make the research process so much more efficient. I.e., I can work with my AI tool. I can find whatever data I need to draw certain conclusions. But I think you will spend more time kind of discussing that with your peers. We're going to see such a shift from non-human work to human work. So we draw a conclusion, you produce your materials, say for your board meeting or whatever. And I think the critical thinking will move more kind of from the research process to the decision process when you are in your groups, in your teams, in your boardrooms, aligning on, okay, how do we interpret the data and what do we actually do with this?
And I mean, does your system ever say, I don't know, or a human should look at this?
It gives then, depends on how the process is set up, right? It doesn't then perform the action, and that is then still taken by the end user. But to be quite honest, right? AI is reasoning.
Yes.
It is working with probabilities.
Yes.
And it can be 97% right, which sounds like a lot, right? 97% right. But still, it means there is a percentage which is wrong. And in some processes, like for example, in our space, processing the payroll or doing the month-end closing or year-end closing in finance, 97% right is 100% wrong. Right? So you exactly need the right guardrails from a system perspective, but on also the human being for critical thinking to judge if this is right.
Yeah. How do you work with this gap? I mean, because that is the major problem. When I get the wrong salary and I'm the employee, I'm pretty unhappy. Or another example, somebody not getting a fair shot. So how do you handle this?
Want to take
gap?
Yeah, so the way that we approach it is that like traditional software is very deterministic. It follows a certain logic that is almost entirely predictable and repeatable. Whereas language models are inherently probabilistic. They get it right 97% of the time, but the benefit is that they're so flexible to work with. I can be very vague. I can write my question however I feel like it in ChatGPT or whatever tool you're using. But still, we have this kind of error margin that is too high. But if we combine traditional deterministic software with probabilistic language models, we can get the flexibility that like really makes you more efficient in executing your work and so on. But you can rely on the safety and the determinism. So for example, payroll. If I want to trigger some kind of payroll action in natural language, I use the language model. But then I rely on a deterministic process that I can review before. Like I know exactly which payroll is going to be paid out. So I think the sweet spot is being able to combine these two technologies, and that's really where you're going to get high flexibility and high predictability of the outcomes.
Yeah. And how can we train people in critical thinking and asking these questions, challenging AI, not just getting an answer, using it, and saying, okay, I don't hire this guy because AI said it.
Yeah. I think back to your earlier question, right? What do we, with the time which we actually gain, encourage also our employees to train themselves more? And I think you know that from your working days today, that training yourself, right, being as an employee or as a manager, this is often the time which gets constantly deprioritized in our calendars. And I think making that a repository, a requirement, right, going forward, that this is not an optional, and having hopefully engaging learning systems in place where it's fun for the employees to go in and train that, whatever skills, this is so crucial.
Yeah. There's another factor about motivation, because I find when AI kind of takes over the parts of work people find meaningful, productivity goes up and motivation goes down. And early research is starting to back this up, that you always have more productivity, but in many cases you have a drop in motivation and people get bored when they do their job. So what can we do to make sure AI does not kill human performance. Because then you have a rise in productivity, but when all your people
Are bored out.
have a drop in performance, you have a problem.
I think you have some good insights there also
Yeah.
from working at Sana, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I was looking at the title last night, and
Yes.
it is like leading HR through the AI era. I think you can flip it around that HR will help us kind of go through the AI era. Because from our example, every time we deploy Sana with a customer, we always ask that they bring HR or some internal communications person, because we know that every customer has a unique culture. And coming back to what you said, like some companies may feel like productivity goes up, they deployed some agents, some AI-based workflows, but motivation goes down. And AI kind of has HR kind of has the pulse on the organization. They know maybe which areas of the business we shouldn't start deploying AI on until we can build up trust and have a plan on how we actually drive productivity without the motivation drop.
Yeah.
So I think it's a case-by-case scenario. You just have to be mindful of the people aspect of deploying AI. People kind of over-index on technology selection, and they spend not enough time thinking about how it will be perceived from the people in the business once the tools are rolling out.
Yeah. I guess it goes back to your point, relationship management, so that leaders should really talk to their people. Which are the jobs you love? What do you want to do? Because it just gives energy and
Exactly. Yeah, and I think additionally also thinking career progression completely different than we do today, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes it's a lot, we're growing in our functional roles, doing the next career step, climbing the ladder up. Right? But in the future, we really see, and Isabel also has touched to that, it's like business models of the organizations are going to change so much. It will be more fluid, right? So we need to identify which are the problems we need to solve as an organization. Which projects do I need my best people to work on, right? So with the productivity gains I actually have, I completely shift them in the organization and then get new motivation, not with the same job they were doing for years, but actually with something that moves the needle for the organization.
yeah. Since we're coming to an end, I want you to ask you about accountability, because we have touched on this, but it's a complicated question. So let's go there. Because if an AI system kind of flags someone as a risk, for example, or recommends against hiring a candidate, and that turns out to be wrong or biased, who is responsible? Is that your company? Is that the client? Nobody? What are your ideas on that big question?
I mean, the way that we approach it, and I think you can draw a parallel between kind of when assisted driving and self-driving cars, that whole technology started coming out in like the last 15 years. We are sort of at the beginning in the AI journey, in that 10 years from now, you may have agents that autonomously take action across your systems and your business. But the technology is not mature enough, and the infrastructure around the language models is not mature enough to actually enable that. So I'd say that the short-term scenario is like the coming 2 to 5 years. Every single action that an AI system takes needs to be approved by an individual user. And there's a really good quote here from an IBM training manual in the 70s or like the 80s, is that a computer must never take a management decision because it can never be held accountable. At the end of the day, it's a human that needs to be held accountable. And I think at least in the coming 5 years, that's how it's going to look almost across every single company.
Yeah, thank you. So one last question for both of you. And I told you this was coming. 5 years from now, what should a great leader be able to do that no AI can do?
Yeah.
Understand?
For me, it is going back to my relator skill, right? I think it is, as a leader, looking your team into the eye, especially when it gets messy and it's chaotic, and saying, I hear you, I take the decision, and we're in that together, right? I think AI will play the options and will certainly improve to do so, but it is only the human being who can carry the weight of a decision and ultimately earn the trust of the people affected by it.
Yeah, good point. Thank you. That's your point.
I'd say, like, ideas are gonna be worth a lot more because the capabilities that we have to like realize visions and ideas is just gonna like tenfold, 100-fold in like the coming decade. But at the end of the day, it's not gonna be a completely automated economy. We're all gonna find some work to do, but it's gonna be a lot less of the non-human work, kind of the administrative work. And I think the key skill in that future is being a leader that can align people around a common vision to make sure that all of the kind of downstream actions they take to realize that is in alignment. Because you're very capable, but if you're all running in different directions, no matter if you're using a million different agents, it's still going to be chaos. So I think that is a skill that's always been valuable, and I think it's going to remain like that for a long time.
Perfect. Thank you, William. Thank you, Alexandra. And thank you for listening, and hope to meet lots of you later.